Let me ask you something. Your business is hitting every target, but your health is shot, your relationships are strained, and you're never home before dark. Is that success? We obsess over KPIs, revenue, growth, conversion, etc. But what about your life? Because destroying your life isn't ambitious, it's madness. Today we're going to talk about how to align what you do with why you're doing it. And we're going to talk about how listening, real and grounded, active and ego-free listening, is going to give you the ultimate edge. I'm Tate Pollock, founder of Pivotal and author of Everywhere Commerce. And in this channel, we talk about how modern commerce actually works and how to build, scale, and lead in a world where commerce is happening everywhere. So the first thing I want to talk about is why life and business need to align. Because what's the point in success if it doesn't feel like success? So I remember when I first became a dad and something in me took over and I became even more work obsessed than I was anyway. I used to love having a party. I used to love having a good time. And I used to work a lot too. I always had a good work ethic, but I would party just as hard. The thing is, something happens, not to every new father, but I think this deadly combination of, or nearly deadly combination of ambitiousness and something that takes over when you have a child set me into some kind of obsessive pattern. And it's quite a normal thing that happens, I think, but it's not healthy. So when I had my boy, I think I let the first few months go by and I didn't really have time to think. I just did. The early days are the dark days, as we used to call them. So nappy changes, we had sleepless nights just like everybody else. Cry it out, do we not cry it out? Learning the ropes, how to cope with sharing a bed with this little alien dude. And then after a few months goes by and you begin to see a few glimmers of light and you begin to get into a routine and start to think of yourself as not some automaton. That goes on for a long time, but after a while, then you start to think, oh shit, I've got this little life here and it's depending on me and I've got to do everything in my power to keep this thing alive. So that's when it hits. So I remember I was walking up the street to work and I saw a picture of a dad with his kid on some poster, like an advert for a TV show or something. And it was a cheesy stock image, but something I still remember it today. Something in me, I saw the image and I got this pang, this strong feeling of emotion that said, don't stop until you've provided infinite amounts. Can't even describe it. It was an indescribable feeling, but I saw the image and something in it resonated with me, and that was like, that's going to be me with my kid. And I just remember that turning point, that pivotal moment where I couldn't look back. And I knew that I had to obsess and build something so strong that my grandchildren's grandchildren would benefit from it. I don't know why. I'm still obsessed with it today, but something in me really took over. And I think that might just be called fatherhood, that feeling of wanting to provide. It might be my particular setup, it might be my genes, I don't know. I think there's a lot of dads out there that would understand this feeling, but it's like a compelling urge to look after that thing that you made. So he became priority number one. And then you get into this catch-22 because you go to work a lot to provide, and then in that obsession to provide, you end up naturally doing long hours because sometimes it takes long hours to get shit done. It does take a lot of hours. You can't just work smart. You have to also work hard too. Or that little kid, that little thing that you made, that little human or alien, he's not going to eat. So you work hard, but then from that hard work, and this is our society, I guess, this is just a thing that happens in our society, you don't get to see your kid as much. And if you do, even if you're working from home, you're still busy. You're not occupied with your child. It's tough. Even if you're in a relationship where you're sharing some of those responsibilities, you still don't get all that time with your kid. So guilt kicks in. And then you feel torn because you're like, well, I've got to provide for this kid and its kids. And I don't know, something primal kicks in and it's in conflict with, well, I don't get to see this kid or spend any time with this kid. And then you're in a battle between the two. And then you need to start measuring what success looks like, not just based on money, but based on a variety of things. So this is where the idea of key life performance indicators comes in, which I'll talk more about in a second. But this is a really good example of how life goals start as one and then split and become separated, even though they shouldn't. Because of course one of my life goals is to see my kid and to spend time with him, which I'm much better at now, but I'm still not there. My balance is still not there. I think I should be balanced, but then I know I can't be. Anyway, so KPIs in marketing or business in general are a cold, calculated description of how well you're performing. So you've got revenue, growth, profit, conversions, and the like. But KLPIs, they're not measurable, but there's still something that you can to quantify to a point and to measure how much joy you're experiencing, how much family time you're getting, how much downtime you're getting, time when you get to fill your cup. Because unless you set a KLPI, unless you set some sort of form of measurement. Today I had 20 minutes of meditation. I hugged my kid for 20 minutes. I played basketball with my kid. I played dolls or Barbies or built something with my kid or spent some time with my wife or cooked the family a meal. And you have a dedicated amount of time for that. I think you kind of need to measure something if you're going to improve it. So dedicating a night, dedicating hours or specific time to it, and measuring that alongside how well you're doing at work and how well you're doing in business, that's how to sort of balance up your KLPIs with your KPIs. And that's because if you hit every business goal, you could still feel miserable or empty or devoid of the satisfying feeling that you set out to get when you went to create your business or excel in your job or whatever. So KLPIs fill that gap. So I think the first thing to do is to define what success looks like for you. So rich isn't a number. There is no number that defines rich. Rich is a feeling, and rich is something which you experience. So if you feel rich or abundant or wealthy, some people don't need cash to make that happen, but sometimes you need money as well in order to be able to do fun things with your kid or with your family or whatever. So what does rich actually mean to you? I'm really keen to hear that actually. If you want to put it in the comments, I'd love to see how you guys define what rich is. Rich or wealth. I want to know what you think wealth is. Wealth is a pretty good phrase. But a KLPI is more measurable than that. So some good examples of KLPIs are, did you hit 10,000 steps per day? That's a KLPI, measuring health or what's likely to lead you to good health, which is kind of how we use KPIs in business. So it could be, did you have 3 holidays this year? It's a lot, but it's not too much. Did you have 3 holidays this year? It could be 2 weekend trips and a long trip away, but like 3 holidays, 10,000 steps. Or it could be something you do daily. A daily KLPI might be like what I do, which is read with my kid. So every night, even though he's getting a bit older, we still read together every night, generally. If I miss it, very rarely, but it's how I measure whether it's been a full day or a complete day. And also, it's important to decide what success looks like for you as opposed to what Instagram tells you success looks like. So when you're setting your KLPIs, be realistic and think, how can I make a measurable improvement to my life as opposed to the life that I would love to live over there? Because everything's progress, right? So you start to improve a KLPI, just like a KPI, and then you have a new baseline and you can improve it further. So measurable, you might start at 10,000 steps. You might then move it up to 12,000 steps a day, and then 15,000, and then switch it up for a run. You might read your kid a story at night, but also then make breakfast for him in the morning, or do something together in the morning as well, and then you can start improving things over time. Some of this sounds really obvious, but it's not when you're obsessed with work. A decade goes by and then you realize you haven't focused on it enough because you've been so blinkered because you're looking for what you think success looks like. But success is broader than that, and that's what I'm here to tell you today. So I'm not going to lie, I think if you want to build a successful business, there are sacrifices you have to make. And I think in the early days of entrepreneurship, you will end up sinking a fair amount of time into business. So if you're thinking about having a kid, or you're in the early stages of having a kid, you put in some graft because your genes and your brain and your heart and everything is telling you to use that and use it to put wind in your sails. But then you need to define as early as possible what success looks like going forward, because it is possible to build a successful business that doesn't require you to work 100 hours a week. Sometimes in the early days, you need to wear a bunch of hats, and then you need to start taking those hats off. And then over time, you've got more time back. Every time you take a hat off, you do a new hire, and your 100-hour week becomes 60, and then 40, and then eventually, and this is the great thing about business, if you design it right, you could be spending 20 hours a week on your business and an extra 20 hours a week that a salaried person or someone who doesn't work for themselves would be able to spend with their kid. So you can make sacrifices early on and then you get the gains later, or you can average it out and you can work 40 hours non-stop. No, I didn't really think about that, but looking back, if I was more aware of it, or if I had to have words with myself, I might have thought, well, 2 years have gone by and I'm doing a 100-hour week, so let's try and ease out of that measurably. Look at the actual time I'm spending, make it a KLPI to move from 100 to 60 to 40 to 20, and through measurement you can improve things, and then I would improve that. And another really good thing you can do is you can start with the end in mind. So I definitely didn't do that. I started and thought, well, I just want to be successful. But then that's like what a lot of people do, right? So you might be watching this thinking, I just want money. I just want to be successful. And it took a lot of self-reflection and soul-searching and kind of internal reflection to know, working backwards, what success looks like. It turns out I do have some pretty ambitious goals. I want to be completely non-reliant on money. So I want to be able to do anything limit-free without money being an issue. That doesn't mean I have to have billions, but it does mean I have to have an ever-growing pot of wealth, and it has to get to that critical mass point where it will grow on its own. And it has to be from that growth I can live rather than touching the capital. And whatever I take on average to live off is still not taking that growth volume on top that keeps the whole portfolio growing. So my goal is to create a flywheel, but you might have a business idea, or you might have a goal that is a lifestyle business where you work backwards from, I want to work 20 hours a week. I want to go on 5 holidays a year. I want to sell or interact or engage with products or services that I love. You might be a painter, you might be an artist, you might be a photographer. You could sell insurance, but just really love insurance. You could do that. And you can design it then to say, well, as long as I earn £120,000 a year, that's going to afford to send me on this many holidays. And you work it backwards with how much flights cost and the average hotel booking and time away. And then you work out what the difference is, and then you can build a business around those numbers. But the key is use real numbers and calculate what things will really cost and work backwards from that. So I've done that, and to get that portfolio that I'm looking to build, it's a fair size. I won't go through the specific numbers, but I have a spreadsheet. And I would say that I'm probably a little too ambitious for your average person's liking. I can't help it. I want to achieve world-changing legacy. I want to make an impact on the planet. And I think in order for me to be able to make the biggest difference, hopefully positive, I need to escape the rat race and have freedom to do whatever, free action. I need to be able to move there, try that, quickly, fail early, fail often, move on to the next thing within a focused area. And I'm getting there. I'm in a much closer place to that than I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So that is measurable, and I'm on my way there. So a really important thing to note is that listening, not in the conventional sense, but listening is probably the secret to measuring up your work life. I don't like the word work-life balance. I think there's a work-life integration. Work-life balance indicates you've got an equal amount on both sides. Work-life integration is that they work in harmony together, but they're not of equal number. It might be that 1 week you've got nothing to do work-wise, and you're just supposed to do what you need to do. There's any other system beyond that is made up. It's a concept. It's something that doesn't exist. So the farmer's a really good example, by the way, because a farmer will wake up in the morning and just see what needs to be done and do the things that need to be done to get the crops in, to look after the animals, to monetize the farm, to feed themselves. They don't do things because a system works. There are systems, but they do what they need to do because they see it in front of them and they do it. That's what an entrepreneur's life should be like. So being trapped by systems means you're kind of stuck. So learning how to listen is also learning how to observe, and being able to observe your systems that make you stuck is really important. If you're able to watch patterns in your life, things that you repeat in your behavior, traits that don't serve you but you just do because they keep you comfortable, or maybe they achieve a certain reaction that keeps you comfortable, observing those patterns is a form of listening. And you got to take your ego out of the equation, because your ego will tell you you're always right. If you listen to your ego the whole time, you're not going to really have much work to do. It's going to tell you you're fine now. A lot of 20-year-olds need to hear this. So a lot of founders have big egos. It's just a thing. And having a big ego means a lot of founders don't learn to share the wheel or to take those hats off. And there's a really good phrase, it's let go to grow. And I never forgot that phrase. I think I heard it from Jay Vadim back when I was working in my first business. He was really good at getting other people to help him, and I got some good advice from him, and I always remembered it. He was on Ninja Tunes. Check out his work on Spotify. Big up DJ Vadim, long time. But yeah, let go to grow, or just being able to find people around you that are better than you in quite a lot of cases, to focus on those things while you focus on the thing you're good at. That requires a letting go of your ego. It's not just let go, it's let go of your ego. You aren't the best at everything. There will be things you'll be good at, and as a founder you'll be quite a generalist. You'll be a good generalist. You'll be a jack of all trades. You need to find masters, and you need to allocate those the tasks. Your business will definitely improve once you've done that. So what you get from that, though, because ego gives you this false sense of security, ego tells you you're right, ego gives you the illusion of confidence, but what real confidence comes from is observation and learning and listening to what's actually working. Because you can't really kid yourself. When you see evidence of your own success and failures, and how you got through those failures to then reach the newer, more real and authentic and long-lasting success, you're able to look in the mirror and tell yourself, I can do this, and you can build a business from that. You can't build a business on an illusion of confidence. You have to have real confidence, and that comes from stepping outside your comfort zone and doing shit you're not used to doing or even want to do for the sake of the bigger picture that you want. So you have to want the bigger picture more than the individual things that lead up to that, to deal with the daily shit to build the bigger thing. So another thing I want to talk about is why independent thinkers build stronger teams. So I recently heard this metaphor for why you need barrels and you need ammunition. So he's talking about gun barrels or cannons. And you get free thinkers, and they're quite rare in your business, who you might hire, who are able to rally people around them. And for the ammunition, well, what that means is there are people who are good at performing tasks, but they might not rally people around them. They might not be as self-initiated. They won't problem solve as much. They won't step outside their comfort zone or their job description. They don't think freely, and they need guidance. So those people aren't bad people. They're extremely useful. They're the ammunition. They're the people who, when you point at a target, you're going to take that target down. But the free thinking people, those are the people who are going to help you build out those and achieve those KLPIs that you set out to do. They're going to take some of that ownership and responsibility from you as an entrepreneur or business owner, or even a unit leader, like a team leader of a marketing team. Find a free thinker and have ammunition to load that free thinker up with, and they're going to buy you time, which is the most precious thing you can get, and they're going to help you perform. And that's how you can step out of the realm of KPIs, going back to what we were talking about earlier, and into the realm of KLPIs. Like, how do you get what your perceived work-life integration looks like? That's how you do it. So those free thinkers, although sometimes they might annoy you, you can actually tell that you found one, probably because they annoy you, are the best people. They're unicorns. When you have them, take them out for dinner, look after them, take them out for lunch, say nice things to them, remember their birthdays, everything you can possibly do, make a real relationship with them, because those are the people that are going to take you to the next step. Yes, men are dangerous. They'll just nod while the ship sinks. You need someone who's going to tell you the ship is sinking, so you can all work together to go and plug those holes and get that company fixed, get that business running again. Really cheesy, but great things and great teams challenge each other. Although great teams filled with free thinkers, well, friction creates fire, so fire in a good way. I think a red flag as well to look out for is a fan. You don't want to hire a fan, you want to hire a thinker. A fan is someone who's going to just say yes to you, and your ego is going to be satisfied and you're going to think great. But again, building a fan base around you as a business owner is literally asking for trouble, because the ship could be sinking and you'll have a bunch of people nodding at you, and you need people who will go and fix that themselves even if you're not around. So listening as well, listening in general is a talent, and being able to listen really well is the only way to run a business. Like you have to put that in the front and foremost important thing to do. I have a tattoo. It says seek first to understand on this shoulder, and then to be understood. So seek first to understand, then to be understood. And the reason I have it tattooed to me is because, just like everyone, especially when they're younger, I would listen in order to speak. I would think about what I wanted to say and just wait for the other person to stop talking. And I wouldn't properly take in what they were saying because I was so eager to say the thing I want to say. I've always been okay at not doing that, but I've always noticed it when I've done it and felt like that's not right. And so I just, whenever I think of something that I need to remember for life, I'll tattoo myself because I'm forgetful. So the pain hopefully helps me remember. Anyway, there are 4 primary listening channels that every business owner needs. And as we're talking about listening, in order to get the edge, these are your 4 channels. So you've got customers, you've got employers, you've got competitors, and you've got the world. So when it comes to your customer, that's kind of an easy one. When you can do competitor analysis and you can look at what your competitors are selling, but then that's the third one. Learning from their customers is kind of where I was getting at, but your own customers will tell you a huge amount. So what are their buying habits? How often are they buying? What time of day are they buying? What versions of the product are they buying? How long does that product or service last them? Do they return that? Do they ever ask for a discount? Are they happy to pay for 2? Is there a color preference? Are they buying only pink of your product over black, for example? There is all kinds of information your customers telling you through their actions, which always speak louder than words. So learning how to listen to your customers is a really good way to grow your business. The next one is your employees or your team. So many employees or team members in an organization, no matter the size, don't feel comfortable talking to their boss about things which are broken. They could make a huge mistake and they won't want you to know about it. A free thinker, they might tell you they've made a mistake and know that that's fine and be fine to annoy you about it and acknowledge the fact you're going to be pissed off. Those are great people, but a huge amount of people, the majority of people, are going to make mistakes and not tell you. They're going to think things about your organization and talk about that with their colleagues behind your back. So what you want to do with that information though is just acknowledge that someone else in your business might be a better listening post for those employees or those team members. You might have a really caring, compassionate team member who you build an even closer relationship with, and they will tell you what's going on, or perhaps they'll anonymize information and then they can be a go-to or a confidant for some of your staff. But being able to listen to what's happening on the ground floor and at the front lines of what your business does, if you have some kind of separation from that. For example, I have a team of 22, including me. Downstairs is 21 people. We've got overseas teams. Sometimes I'm up here doing YouTube videos or podcasts, or I'm out on the road with clients or doing panel talks or events, that kind of thing. And things happen and I don't know about it. But I've got some good people who do speak to the team on a regular basis, good managers who have one-to-ones with people, give them time to speak, and then I have one-to-ones with those people. And that hierarchy of listening means that things that are important do tend to surface to me, especially if they get repeated, and then it's up to me whether I act on it or not. But generally speaking, creating a safe and hierarchical, structural listening operational process, I guess you'd call it, is vital and a really good thing to do in a business and at all stages as you grow. So when I get to 5,000 staff, I'm going to do the same thing. I want to make sure all of that useful information bubbles up to the surface and I'm able to listen to everyone. And I don't know quite how I'm going to do that. I'm going to hire really good operations people and they're going to help me put that in place. Competitors are another one. So they're speaking to you the whole time. They don't want to, but just by being in the public eye, competitors are showing you things. So don't copy, but definitely learn. There are tools like BuiltWith, SimilarWeb. You can go on their website and see what promotions they're doing. You can subscribe to their emails and see what emails they're sending. You can subscribe to their social media and see what kind of posts that they're putting up and whether they sync with their emails. You can learn the types of brands they've got for sale on the site and how they're merchandising their site. If they have bricks and mortar and retail, you can learn from that. So mystery shop, visit, interact with, speak to employees, speak to your friends about those businesses, see what they think, see if you can get honest feedback. Maybe you've got friends who really like that business that's a competitor of yours and they'll tell you why over your business. Your friends might tell you, so use those competitors to learn from. And then the final one is the world. So on a global level, and this goes with the book, commerce is everywhere and the world is changing so quickly right now in digital. The world is becoming more and more digital and commerce is happening everywhere in all facets of our life. You can buy food on your fridge. You can send a text message and have your grocery shop delivered. You can speak to your AI assistant and have it deliver you toilet roll or paint. And you can whoosh on your Deliveroo order groceries that come alongside your takeaway if you want. You can order an Uber to take you somewhere and you can order an Uber to bring you a burger all at the same time. So cultural shifts are happening and the key is to watch the news, watch TV, observe it, listen to it. Don't take it all on don't take on the stresses of the world, but just watch. AI is huge right now. Where's that going? Try and predict a little bit. Look at some of the predictions other people are making. Look at how your competitors are implementing AI, for example, but anything. If there's a cultural shift towards one thing or another, there's a really important takeaway here, and that's pay attention to cultural shifts. Social media is huge at the moment. AI is huge and they're kind of converging. Automation is huge and many things are getting automated. People's jobs are changing. People are always going to need to work and new jobs will be made and old jobs will disappear, just like coal miners. There was literally people who used to throw rocks at people's windows in order to wake them up. We have alarm clocks now, so don't be afraid, just observe and stay ahead of the curve. That's your job as a business owner, and implement when you can. But it's listening, it's a form of listening. So both practically and philosophically, here are some tips to be a better listener. Pretty simple stuff. And just remember, hearing isn't listening, listening is listening. You can take in sounds and you can repeat them probably, but comprehension, actually taking in something and being able to digest it and give something back from it, being able to take it in properly, that's listening. So some practical tips. When someone's speaking to you, and this could be an employee, it could be a competitor when you're mystery shopping them, it could be the news, it could be an AI blog. Don't think about what you want to say next. Don't interrupt. Don't just empty your mind and just listen to the keywords that come out. Take them in, interpret them. Active listening is really good. So repeat back what you've heard. Register on their face if it's a two-way interaction. It doesn't work with the news, but with anyone, any person. And if they light up after you've repeated what they've said through active listening, subconsciously you immediately know you've listened, and then you're allowed to come up with what you want to say, but just leave a gap, process it and say what you should say, not what you wanted to say before they said anything. That's not a conversation, and you have to have conversations. Be a good listener, should I say, to have conversations. And then before you ask a question as well, pause for a second and think, is this the best question to ask? Or do I need to ask the question at all? Ask better questions. I like to say this in general, but it's always the case that people observe what they see, they hear the sounds they hear, but people don't often look at what's not being said and what they can't see, the negative space between things. it's huge in design. When you look at an amazing design like the FedEx logo, it's like a hidden arrow. Some of the best designers are able to look into that negative space and see what others don't see, and that's where the opportunity is. There's an infinite void out there that's telling us things, and it's in the what we don't hear and in the what we don't see. So pay attention to what your competitors aren't doing. Pay attention to what people are not saying. Pay attention to what you don't see in the world as well. That's really important. And I think for you to achieve anything, you need to know that you're setting out to achieve it. Otherwise, you'll miss your chances. So you need to always assume you're missing something. No, I'll say that again. You always need to be assuming that you're missing something. So assume you don't know enough. If you always have that in the back of your mind, then you'll probably probe more, you'll ask active questions, you'll engage more, you'll be the person who you're listening to will see in your eyes that you're actively interested, and they'll open up more. Make statements as well. So if you make a statement, you're much more likely to garner a response from somebody. And the reason for that is answering a question. You can ask questions, but if you ask a question, it takes a lot more energy for that person to process the question and formulate an answer. If you make a statement or a presumption, say a presumptive thing about what they've just told you, it shows you've listened, but also your interpretation of it is starting to form in, and you can make that presumptive statement, and it's way less energy for them to then correct you, and people will correct you more. So you can get more out of it if you give them less to work with, and you don't ask a question can be leading, a question can almost determine the answer itself. But if you just say, so you like discounting products these days, or the summer is a really good time for you, say you're saying that to your competition, they're way more likely to say, oh no, definitely Easter is better, as opposed to if you say, is the summer the best time for you? Because then they're going to be asking themselves, well, why am I getting asked that? And also, by them telling you, you've not asked the question, they volunteered it, so it doesn't raise any suspicion, and it encourages them to give more information. But observe it, take it in, and listen. So it's a really good listening technique there. I find that really useful. So I think a final thing to talk about is seasonality. So when running a business, you've got the seasons, and then in different countries, seasons affect people in different ways. One thing to observe is the buying habits and the buying patterns of your customers. So the first listening channel that I mentioned was customers. So customer behavior during seasons is listening to patterns. So through listening to patterns, you're going to be able to notice and identify when you should buy ahead of those curves, buy ahead of those patterns in order to sell when the going's good. Also, to pull back your buying or to pull back your resources when you know that there's going to be a downturn, and that does tend to happen seasonally in all businesses to one extent or another. So listening to patterns or observing patterns, I'm going to use listening and observing interchangeably because they're one and the same in my mind. Patterns are something which people don't tend to look at as much. They do when it comes to KPIs and not so much in KLPIs, but patterns appear in things that don't usually get KPI'd as well, and they're really important listening channels. So I didn't mention it earlier. That's because, customers, employees, competitors, and the world will all have patterns. There'll be patterns in the news. There'll be patterns within your employee or your team base. So look out for those, observe them, listen to them, see what they give you in terms of insight and wisdom, and they're going to yield dividends. There are certain things you need to do non-seasonally as well. So it might seem prudent to, if you're working with seasonality or the shiftings of weather or even holidays and that kind of thing, if you're selling based on festivities, it's very common to market only during those times and to save money when it gets quieter. That might seem productive, but it's counterintuitive because you need to stay present in the minds of the people during famine in order to have them buy from you during feast. So you need to be marketing to them in quiet periods, and you need to be able to average out your marketing spend and your marketing budget and the energy that you put into marketing throughout the year. But you might change the messaging. Through listening, you can adapt it so that perhaps there's more brand building or more philosophical advertising that builds their perception of you up during the quiet periods, and then it's more money making and sales oriented copy and text and marketing assets during the times when it's busier period. So then just a quick note as to why strategy is more important than just branding alone. So branding is what people see, and it's very important. Branding encompasses many things. It encompasses the feelings that are attached to the brand that you have created or the business that you've created. And those feelings are super important. But it's the strategy that helps brands connote those feelings. And strategy can be the placement of your ads. It can be the color choices and the fonts. It's kind of intertwined with the branding, but strategy sits above branding and is super important. And it involves learning, and it involves listening and measurement. And the definitely is what people see, and strategy is what makes people buy. A beautiful brand is like a Ferrari with no fuel. So a beautiful brand needs to be out there. It needs to be in an ecosystem where people can see it and engage with it. And it takes strategy to make that happen. So in the book, Everywhere Commerce, which you can find on Waterstones and on Amazon and on the Pivotal website, which is pivotal.digital/everywhere-commerce, you can find a paperback and a hardback version of the book. And in the book, it's filled with strategy. There's a whole part of strategy, including this section, which talks about listening and how to set up a business so that you can live a good life as well as run a good business, which is what we spoke about earlier, and how to move towards a better understanding so that you can strategize better and create scalable systems that grow beyond what you're capable of even comprehending, if that's what you want, or that grow into a place where you're able to get the best work-life integration.